Hercules Tires is the official tire of the Western Athletic Conference, and for over 65 years has been providing tires with unbeatable quality at an unmatched value. Whatever the vehicle and whatever the terrain, Hercules Tires invites you to ride on our strength. For a retailer near you, visit HerculesTires.com.
Welcome to the WAC Podcast. I'm Kendra Sheehan, Eric Danner. We have a special guest, Chris Thompson, Assistant Commissioner of Media Relations, joining us. Chris has been with the WAC since 2014, but first time in your tenure that we've had football.
Yeah, it's been a busy but exciting fall.
Yeah, and you're headed out to the game this weekend. Stephen F. Austin and Incarnate Ward.
I will. I'll be down in San Antonio for a current WAC school versus future WAC school. Should be a really good matchup between the teams, even if Incarnate Ward wasn't coming into the WAC and I wasn't trying to talk them up. It's a good team. They've got a really good coach. They've got some really, really good players. And I think all year we've seen just how explosive Stephen F. Austin can be. And I don't think it's going to be a 6-3 ball game. That's my prediction right now. I do not think it'll be 6-3.
So SFA, they go 8-3 in the regular season, 4-1 in the WAC. And of course they came out just short in the Battle of the Piney Woods, but what a good season for them. And I know they were on pins and needles waiting to get that invitation to the FCS playoffs.
Yeah, I think they were. SFA Athletic Director Ryan Ivey had spent some time on the committee. He's not on it this year, but he's been on it in the past. So he kind of had an idea of how it worked. But I think really when you looked at the resume and you're like, wow, a 1-point loss in the Battle of Piney Woods, that game at Texas Tech where they were one play away, even the loss with Jacksonville State, I believe it was a close loss. So you look at what they've done. They did everything that they needed to do. And again, you look at that offense, you look at that defense, you even special teams. I mean, Sam Houston's a great team and they're very, very balanced, but Stephen F is a very balanced team as well. And very exciting team to watch.
We get two WAC teams into the playoffs. Sam Houston, of course, that number one seed. They've been dominant for the past 2 years, a perfect regular season. What do you think it's going to take for them to go back-to-back national champions?
You know, I think it's just going to be consistency. And if there's any coach that's going to be able to lead them, it's going to be Casey Keeler. And I think you look at some of the leaders on that team, Eric Schmidt and Jahari Kay and Zion McCollum and Tristan McCollum. And there's too many to name. You look at the leaders there that they will keep everybody calm. You know, you think of Eric Schmidt, you won't understand this because you're too young, but Joe Montana in the Super Bowl back when he was kind of pointing out at John Candy. I think they were playing the Bengals in the Super Bowl. Yeah. It was before Kendra was even alive, but I just kind of imagine that Eric Schmidt's kind of that way. Like, guys, let's just relax. Let's do our job. If we do our job, we're going to end up on top.
Here we had a chance to visit with Eric Schmidt at the football media day before the season started, son of a coach, and really just kind of embodies that. I was explaining him to Kendra. I said he walked right off the set of Friday Night Lights, if you could pick a character there. The football awards came out. We're shooting this on Tuesday, came out today. Full disclosure, Chris does not select the awards for football. The coaches did. But so many good players, especially from the two teams we've talked about, Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, Xavier Gibson from Stephen F. having a fantastic season, sells it short. He's one of the 25 finalists for the Walter Payton Award, but he also leads the nation, not just the WAC. It leads the FCS in several categories. Receptions, receiving yards per game, receiving touchdowns. I think he has something ridiculous like 14 receiving touchdowns. Right. He's a special player, and he's lucky he's getting the ball from a really good quarterback in Trey Self. But Xavier Gibson, if you're a casual football fan, remember him because you might want to be drafting him in your fantasy football in a few years because he's going to be in the league. And you know, I wouldn't be shocked to see him as a number 2 or number 3 receiver, or even number 1 receiver somewhere with the tools that he has. So, you know, great for Xavier to get Offensive Player of the Year. It's a very tight race, but well-deserving for Gibson.
And having football back, we have 4 players that were finalists in 2 different awards. We have 2 teams in the playoffs. What does that mean for this conference as we look to establish ourselves as a football conference?
I think it just kind of shows that we're already there. You know, in FCS, any fans of FCS know you have the Big Sky, you have the Missouri Valley, you have the Colonial, kind of the big 3. And then after that, it's kind of split. But the WAC's not far from there. And to be perfectly honest, with James Madison leaving the Colonial in a few years, it's not outrageous for us to think that we might kind of go up there and be considered in that discussion with the Big Sky and Missouri Valley. All the respect to them. They've got some great teams, and we have a long way to go until we're at their level. But to be considered one of the top conferences, we're not far away. So it always helps having the defending national champion joining you when you're restarting football, but we're right there. And that makes it exciting for me, just knowing that when these calls come out for awards and people that we want to see on watch lists, we have some really strong candidates that we could put forth.
Basketball also starting up. We're in that crossover season, which makes it a little busier around the office here. You're a men's basketball contact. So far in men's hoops, Fardaz Amac coming off a fantastic week, seems to have gotten even better, if that's possible, from last year.
He's amazing. He's just amazing to watch. And we talked about just kind of last year and when he was kind of testing the NBA waters and maybe, what kind of role might he play on some of those NBA teams. And he is a great leader in teaching him how to be a big man in the NBA with Mark Madsen. I know I think he went vegan, if I remember right. He went vegan.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, he's in as good a shape, I think, as anybody right now. And, when you're 6'10", 6'11", 7 feet, and you could start banging around. One of the everybody looks at the points and rebounds with him and are impressed by that, and they should. But I think one of the things is he was averaging 35 minutes a game. For a big man to get in the paint, banging around to somebody for 35 minutes a game, that's a special individual right there.
Another player that was kind of the talk of the preseason was Teddy Allen joining New Mexico State. He had been at several different colleges before and was looking to be a pretty big impact on that Aggies team. What have you seen from him and what kind of jumps out at you with that New Mexico State team?
I think that New Mexico State team, we saw them at the Myrtle Beach Invitational, and they beat a good Davidson team. They beat a good Indiana State team. Unfortunately, they fell to a really good Utah State team, top 25 Utah State team. They're not there yet, but they should be. It's a very talented team. Teddy's not afraid to shoot the ball. It's probably good or bad, good and bad, because if he's not making it, those are shots that you wish somebody else would be taking. But he has a lot of hype for a reason. And with Jabari Rice, or this year now he's Sir Jabari Rice.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if he got knighted or something like that,
okay.
But Sir Jabari Rice and Johnny McCants, who seemed like he's been at New Mexico State forever and banging down low. They've got a lot of good players and they are just as talented as everybody thought they would be going into the season.
One of the guys that's jumped out early on, and we have a new award, the Freshman of the Week, which we haven't had in the past, Taryn Armstrong of California Baptist. Seeing some of his games, and he's the brother of Trey Armstrong, who we're familiar with from CBU, but Taryn, this is a different kind of guy. He's already had a triple-double. He's a true freshman. I was seeing numbers comparing him. The only other guy as a freshman to do that this early was Jason Kidd.
I think that's probably a pretty good person to find yourself in comparison with. I talking to you earlier, you kind of mentioned he kind of had that Larry Bird feel on a few things, and I could totally see that. He came in with a lot of hype from Tasmania, Australia, and came in with a lot of hype, but he is living up to it. And I think he's going to get more than the 2 freshmen of the weeks that he's gotten so far. I think his name's going to be right there every week. And he might just kind of be that one last thing that CBU team needed to really push themselves to the top of the standings.
Yeah, watching him has certainly been impressive this season. I know it's early on, but what jumps out to you? Which team or player stands out to you most just from the short amount of games we've had so far?
Oh, it's so hard to take a look at that so early, because you never know who's getting off, who's maybe coming off of an injury that you look at it and you're like, I thought that person would be better, but we don't know if they're maybe sprained their ankle. They're in practice in October, but I think there's just a lot of competitiveness in the WAC this year. Obviously, we have 13 teams. It's going to take a lot to come up at the top of the standings. But the teams that we thought would be there are there. Stephen F. Austin, they're down in Cancun this week. They are a solid team. New Mexico State, solid. Grand Canyon, they lost last night to Wyoming. That was a really fun game to watch. And Wyoming's a very improved team, but they're a fun team to watch. And Grand Canyon, they didn't have Holland Woods last night, which was big. I think he was probably the catalyst that would have given them the win there. I think Seattle U's playing really well right now, and they've got a lot of talent, and they just kind of seem to have gelled. And I think the Red Hawks are going to be a very competitive team this year. They have a lot of home games, which is really going to help kind of pad their record, not saying that negatively, but really get some non-conference wins and kind of get that confidence going into conference play.
Yeah, it's fun to see him play at Climate Pledge Arena, formerly Key Arena, and that great facility. And also Savion Flagg from Sam Houston. He's a guy that kind of jumped out early as well. Women's basketball right now, you're the contact until we get some staffing.
Yeah, it's been a busy guy.
Chicago State winning at Wisconsin. That might be the upset of not only the year, maybe of the decade in the WAC.
Maybe. It's not too often that we get wins over Power Fives. I remember Kansas City beat Kansas a few years ago when they were here in the WAC, and we've seen a few there. But for Chicago State to go on the road and beat a Power Five opponent on the road is big. For that to be their first win in 2 years is even bigger. Tiffany Sarden's doing some great things. Those players that they have there, they know how to play basketball. And any teams that are kind of like, Chicago State, they haven't won very many, we're not going to really worry about them. Who's our next opponent? We'll game plan for them. They're going to be shocked. And that might have been what happened to the Badgers last night.
That was quite a game. We also have California Baptist, Caitlin Harper, who is our Ticket Smarter Western Athletic Conference Women's Basketball Player of the Week. Another player from CBU. That team is really starting to gel. What have you seen from them?
They've continued where they left off last year. They bring back just about everybody and add a few. They played a really tough game on the road at Oregon State, which is a really strong program last week. And they played some tighter games at home. Maybe the one thing that surprised me a little bit is CBU isn't blowing teams out like maybe they have in the past, but they're getting wins, and that's what matters in the end. So CBU is still going to be at the top of the standings towards the end. And another team that is really going to be fun to watch on the women's side is Stephen F. Austin. Their only losses at Texas A&M. I think last year they ended their net. They was like 19 something. They took, I want to say it was LSU to overtime in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And speaking with some folks on the NCAA women's basketball committee today, Stephen F. Austin's in that discussion for an at-large bid right now. As the season goes, that if somebody else kind of sneaks in and they have a solid year, this could be the year that we end up with two teams in the women's basketball tournament. And that's great. And the women's basketball tournament is also expanded to 68 teams this year. So there's going to be an extra 4 teams in. So that helps a little bit when it comes to that. But just seeing that success, and the rest of the league is stepping up. Still a long ways to go, but they're stepping up. You see some teams, Grand Canyon, Utah Valley, Seattle, Sam Houston, Abilene Christian, that are playing really, really good basketball right now and are going to keep getting non-conference wins.
Yeah, Mark Kellogg from Stephen F. Definitely an excellent coach. Had a chance to work with him at a previous job. Chris, I want to thank you for taking some time out. I know you got a lot going on. Want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and also check out some basketball and football this weekend.
Let's do it. WACsports.com. Find out where everybody's playing.
That's Chris Thompson, Assistant Commissioner for Media Relations, joining us. Thanks for watching and listening to the WAC Podcast.
Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And check out our website at WACsports.com.